I don't know if this belongs here, but I feel like it bears mentioning. I, 25 at the time, experienced what I can only imagine as an otherworldly occurrence when I first moved to the Sierra Nevadas about 4 years ago. I had been living in South Lake Tahoe, California for years, and spent a decent amount of time in the outdoors, hiking, camping, and just generally enjoying the beautiful place I was lucky enough to call home. Now, I don't scare easy. I'm used to being by myself, and I carry weapons with me everywhere I go. Being a 5'2" and 110-pound female, I go out of my way to be sure I can protect myself. There were many people in the outdoor community who told me to be careful on trails and in the forests. I usually do these things alone, save for my trustworthy, though somewhat cowardly dog. But I never felt as uncomfortable, confused, and downright afraid as I did in my own apartment one night when I finally relocated away from Tahoe to the city of Reno, Nevada. I had moved to Reno to get away from the isolation of living in Lake Tahoe, and though it is only about 60 miles away, it felt like a different world. Now, the city itself isn't huge, and I was living in the north end of town, which is surrounded by high desert foothills and is somewhat sparsely populated compared to the more urban city area. But I never felt as if I was out in the boonies or anything of the sort. I lived alone with my pup, and we liked our little apartment. So to set the scene here, it was early fall. The sun was beginning to set at a much earlier time of day, which was exemplified by the fact that the city sits in a valley, so sunset seems to approach much faster than in any other places in northern Nevada. My apartment sat just above street level, with a window in the kitchen next to my stacked washer and dryer that looked out into an alley, maybe about 10 feet above the small street that went beside the small fourplex building. It was dark outside, and I was alone with my dog doing laundry. My apartment layout was an open concept. The living room kitchen area was separated by a wall which had a huge space cut out of it that you could see through to each room, with the washer and dryer tucked around one corner, and the aforementioned window to the left of that. With the openness of the space, the darkness outside, and the amount of overall windows the apartment had, if it was dark outside and I had lights on, it looked like I was living in a fishbowl or a terrarium. Anyone or anything could see right in. I made it a point to always close my blinds because of this, save the small window looking out into the alley. I didn't mind keeping those blinds open because I liked the fresh air, and someone would essentially need a ladder to reach me, had they been determined enough. As I was removing clothing from the dryer and turning to plop it on my couch to begin folding, I realized my dog was acting incredibly strange. He didn't want to cross over the line from the living room to the kitchen, which was marked by a change from carpet to tile. Though it was only a few steps, he seemed incredibly hesitant, and began whining and burping out small, concerned woofs. At first, I just thought he was anxious, for whatever reason. He is known to be a bit of a weenie, but then out of nowhere, I sensed his immense and insurmountable feeling of dread and displacement. I had my back turned to the washer and dryer, and to that small alley-facing window. My dog sat facing me, almost looking past me, and his clear anxiety and frustration began to build as I was asking him what was wrong. He began barking a full alarm bark at this point, and as soon as he did, the sense that someone or something was observing me took over and caused my blood to run cold. My logical response was, someone must be watching me through that window, the only window that has open blinds, the only window anyone can possibly see me through. So in one fell swoop, I reached for the overhead drawstring for the light and turned it off and faced the window to confront whoever or whatever was intruding on my life. As soon as the light clicked off and the room was dark, I saw what I can only describe as a perfectly round light, about the size of a small cantaloupe, directly across from me on the other side of the window. It didn't glow like a lamp or light, though its edges were perfect, and it did not hover nor vibrate, nor move at all. At this point, I was too stunned to move, and my fight, flight, or freeze response had engaged so quickly I had no time to really recognize or rationalize what I was seeing. I was looking at this thing, and it was looking back. I felt cold, confused, my hair standing on end, my heart racing. My dog had gone into full freakout mode and was jumping and barking and generally causing a ruckus in the living room. As he could see this all, the light seemed to now realize that I was able to see it, and it looked as if it backed away, or at least grew smaller in size, had moved to the right of the window. It flickered twice and then disappeared. It didn't buzz away or fly away, it didn't zoom out of vision. It was visible, not visible, visible, and then gone. As soon as I realized the light wasn't there anymore, I opened the window fully and poked my head out to see what was going on. Maybe someone was up at my window with a flashlight. Maybe someone in the neighboring buildings had seen something and would be out checking for themselves to try and solve this odd mystery. Nothing, not a soul, and what felt like deafening quiet. I closed the window. As soon as I shut the window, I heard a solid 3 knocks on the larger window by the front door of the living room. As mentioned before, those blinds were closed, and though from the outside looking in, it's likely clear someone is home because the lights were on in that room, no one could possibly know it's me, alone in my apartment, right? I wasn't expecting anyone over. It was too late for solicitors. No one had any reason to be at my house at this time, and I wasn't going to open that door. My dog had rushed to the kitchen as soon as the light outside the window had disappeared, and he was in what I can only call now full defense mode. Now my dog is an absolute sissy. I've seen him run from cats, get spooked by bags blowing in the street, and he generally stays right by my sides on hikes and while we're camping for me to protect him. This pup seemed ready for war. Hackles up, eyes alert, growling at the front door now. I stepped into the living room, grabbed my gun with one hand, keys with the other, and slinked back to the kitchen and out the back door to where my car was parked. I threw the dog in, started up, and raced off to a restaurant across town, where I ordered food and ate in the front seat of my Subaru. We car camped in a Walmart parking lot that night. I returned to the apartment the following day, my laundry still on the couch, no apparent signs of anyone trying to enter the place. Everything seemed normal. I never experienced any disruption in that place again for the 1.5 years I lived there afterwards. I had no idea to this day what I experienced, and it wasn't until I shared this story that I heard the knocking and sense of being observed was a somewhat common phenomenon that people relate to encounters with skinwalkers. I don't know what I experienced that night, but I'd mark myself incredibly lucky if I never had to experience something like that again.